Today, collectors across the globe recognize the 1955 wheat penny as a cornerstone of American numismatics. It is often used as an example in coin books and guides to illustrate how minting errors can create some of the most valuable coins in history. The doubling is so pronounced that even beginners can identify it, making it accessible to new collectors, while still being a prized possession for experts. Now when it comes to value, this is where things get exciting. On platforms like eBay, prices for the 1955 double-die penny can vary dramatically depending on condition. Circulated examples often fetch hundreds to thousands of dollars, while uncirculated or high-grade examples, certified by grading companies, can sell for tens of thousands of dollars. At major auctions, pristine specimens have even exceeded $50,000, making it one of the most lucrative pennies ever released by the U.S. Mint. What makes the market so active for this coin is not just rarity, but also popularity. It's one of those coins that every collector dreams of owning at least once, which keeps demand alive year after year. Even collectors who normally don't specialize in pennies often make an exception for the 1955 double die simply because of its iconic status. If you've ever come across a 1955 wheat penny, it's worth checking closely. Even regular 1955 pennies in uncirculated condition can bring in more than face value, but the double die version is the real jackpot. Imagine finding one tucked away in an old coin jar, passed down through family, or hidden in a forgotten collection. As for selling, many collectors turn to platforms like eBay, heritage auctions, and Stax Bowers, where the demand is always strong. Certified coins from grading companies like PCGS or NGC often bring the highest prices because buyers are assured of authenticity. So, if you happen to own one of these, it could be a life-changing discovery. Like I mentioned earlier, this coin might just turn the tables for you. But here's the twist: rather than giving away the exact value right now, I want you to comment the word price in the comment box below, and I'll personally tell you its current market value and guide you on the best way to sell it for maximum profit. This way, not only will you learn what your 1955 Liberty wheat penny is worth, but you'll also discover how to turn this small piece of copper into a significant payout. So make sure you drop a comment, because the journey of this coin isn't just about history, it's about opportunity. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that looks ordinary at first glance, but in reality, it could be the key to unlocking a small fortune. A coin that has captured the attention of collectors for decades, not only for its value but also for its fascinating backstory filled with history, mistakes, and rarity. If you own the Liberty wheat penny from 1955, this coin might just turn the tables for you. Stick around until the end of this video, because I'll be revealing how much this penny is really worth today, according to eBay, auctions, and other online platforms, and how you can sell one if you're lucky enough to have it. The 1955 Liberty wheat penny is one of the most legendary coins in American numismatics, not just because of its age but because of the incredible story behind it. The wheat penny series itself began in 1909 as a tribute to President Abraham Lincoln, making it the first United States coin to feature a real historical figure. Instead of symbolic representations of liberty, the reverse design, featuring two stalks of wheat, symbolized prosperity and growth. And for over 50 years, these pennies circulated through the hands of millions of Americans. By the time 1955 came, the wheat penny was nearing the end of its run, making the final years of the series especially significant to collectors. The 1955 penny became iconic due to one of the most famous minting errors in history, known as the 1955 double die obverse. During the minting process in Philadelphia, a die that struck the obverse was improperly manufactured, leading to a dramatic doubling effect on the inscriptions. Words like Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1955 show clear doubling that can be seen, even without magnification. This error was so bold and visible that it shocked collectors when it first appeared in circulation. What makes the 1955 double die so unique is that it was never intended to be released. Only about 20,000 to 24,000 coins with this error slipped into circulation before the mistake was caught. By then, they had already spread across the Northeast, especially in New England, where many were discovered in cigarette vending machine change. Imagine putting a penny into circulation back then without realizing that decades later, it would become a coin worth thousands of dollars. Over time, the coin earned legendary status. Collectors began to search endlessly for the 1955 double die penny, driving up demand and making it one of the most talked about era coins in history. Because of its rarity and the sheer visual impact of the doubling, it became one of the most desired coins in the entire wheat penny series. The historical context of 1955 also adds to the coin's appeal. The United States was in a post-war economic boom, and coins were being produced in the millions to keep up with demand. Most pennies from that year are worth only face value unless they're in pristine condition, but the double diversion was a once-in-a-lifetime minting mystic. Story is deeply tied to the economic conditions, minting practices, and evolving coinage standards of the United States in the late 1930s. The Lincoln wheat cent had already been in circulation for nearly 3 decades by 1938, having been introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. This was a landmark moment in U.S. coinage, as Lincoln became the very first real person ever depicted on an American coin. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse features Lincoln's portrait, while the reverse proudly carries 2 wheat stalks framing the words 1C and T. These wheat ears represented America's agricultural strength and symbolized prosperity. The year 1938, the world was on the edge of great change. The United States was still emerging from the effects of the Great Depression, and Europe was bracing for the conflicts that would soon erupt into World War II. Coinage production was stable, but mints were producing coins at more conservative numbers compared to the booming mintages of earlier decades. The 1938 wheat penny was struck at 3 mints. Philadelphia Mint no mint mark, the main production yielding over 156 million coins. What makes the 1938 issue significant is not just its mintage, but also its quality. By this time, the U.S. Mint had perfected much of its cent production, leading to coins with sharper strikes and cleaner details compared to some earlier years. Collectors often note the high quality Lincoln portraits and defined wheat stalks on many 1938 cents found in uncirculated condition. Another point of interest is the composition. The 1938 penny was struck in 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, the standard alloy for cents. Before the wartime shift to steel in 1943, these coins have a rich, reddish-brown tone when preserved well, and their natural patina over time makes each example unique. From a historical perspective, the 1938 penny sits at an interesting crossroads. It belongs to the pre-war era but comes just a few years before massive changes in U.S. coinage, caused by World War II. Within 5 years, Americans would see the steel penny of 1943, produced because copper was desperately needed for war materials, like shell casings and wiring. Thus, the 1938 penny represents one of the last traditional copper cents before the turbulence of the 1940s. The numismatic market. The 1938 wheat penny is considered a semi-common date, but condition and mint mark make all the difference. Circulated examples usually hold only modest value, but uncirculated specimens, especially those with original red luster, can command significant premiums. The 1938 test is particularly prized among collectors for its lower mintage, high-grade examples certified by professional. 1938 was a transitional time in America's history. The nation was still healing from the Great Depression, which had shaken confidence in the economy, yet optimism was beginning to return as President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal programs were in full effect. Jobs were slowly reappearing, industry was recovering, and money was again flowing through the hands of ordinary Americans. Against this backdrop, millions of copper Lincoln cents, including the 1938 wheat penny, were minted to serve in everyday commerce. But to understand the importance of the 1938 cent, we must step back to its origins. The Lincoln wheat cent, first struck in 1909, was revolutionary in American coinage. Prior to its release, U.S. coins featured allegorical images, figures like liberty, and symbolic designs that represented ideals rather than real people. Abraham Lincoln, chosen for the centennial of his birth, was the first historical figure to appear on a U.S. coin. His presence on the penny immediately resonated with Americans, symbolizing honesty, perseverance, and unity. By 1938, Lincoln's portrait had already become iconic and firmly rooted in the nation's coinage tradition. The 1938 wheat penny's design had hardly changed since its introduction. The obverse still bore Lincoln's right-facing profile, surrounded by the date on the right. On the reverse, Victor David Brenner's 2 wheat stalks encircled the words 1 cent and United States of America, with E pluribus unum crowning the top. For many Americans during the 1930s, this familiar design represented both tradition and stability. The mintage figures of 1938 tell an important story about production. While 156 million coins were struck in Philadelphia, the Denver Mint produced about 20 million, and the San Francisco Mint struck 15 million. Compared to other years, these numbers were relatively low, reflecting the lingering economic uncertainties and cautious demand for coinage. Because fewer coins were needed in circulation, the 1938 pennies from Denver and San Francisco today attract more attention from collectors. The composition of the 1938 penny was 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. At first glance, this might seem ordinary, but in historical context, it is significant. Just 5 years later, in 1943, the mint would switch to steel plankets, coated with zinc to conserve copper for World War II munitions. That makes the 1938 issue one of the last pre-war classic copper cents, and touched by the material shortages that soon reshaped U.S. coinage. Another layer of history lies in the penny's role in daily American life. In 1938, a single cent carried much more purchasing power than today. For 1 penny, a child might buy a stick of gum, a handful of candy, or even contribute to the cost of a newspaper. These little coins circulated constantly, passing through millions of hands, each transaction tying or 1937, Liberty Wheat Penny, a small copper coin that carries with it incredible stories of America's past, the artistry of coinage, and the excitement of coin collecting. By the end of this video, you'll see why this coin is so special, and how some rare varieties can reach impressive values among collectors. The 1937 Wheat Penny belongs to the famous Lincoln Wheat Cent series, which was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. It was the very first U.S. coin to feature a real person, breaking away from symbolic figures like Lady Liberty, designed by Victor David Brenner. The coin's obverse shows a striking portrait of Abraham Lincoln. On the reverse, 2 stalks of wheat frame the words 1 cent, which is why collectors fondly call it the wheat penny. The year 1937 was a time of recovery for the United States as the nation slowly climbed out of the Great Depression. Coins from this period were essential in everyday life, often circulating heavily through small purchases, groceries, and wages. The penny was made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving it its rich brown or reddish appearance. This alloy would remain standard for wheat pennies until World War II, when the 1943 steel penny briefly replaced copper for the war effort. The San Francisco Mint, as each mint left its unique footprint on the coin, making certain mint marks more desirable. The Philadelphia Mint struck the largest number of 1937 cents, making them the most common. Denver and San Francisco issues were produced in lower quantities, giving them extra appeal to collectors. The total mintage for all 1937 pennies exceeded 309 million pieces. While this makes the coin common in circulated condition, high-grade specimens, especially with mint red luster, can command very high values. Collectors are especially drawn to the San Francisco 1937 penny. It had the lowest mintage among the three, although still not a rare coin. Finding it in pristine condition can be challenging. Like other wheat pennies, the 1937 coin reflects the artistry of early 20th century coin design. Brenner's depiction of Lincoln is lifelike yet symbolic, capturing the president's thoughtful gaze. Interestingly, many 1937 wheat pennies are found with a range of natural colorations, from deep brown to vibrant red. The redder the coin, the higher the value, as it indicates less oxidation over time. One of the most thrilling aspects of the 1937 wheat penny is the possibility of discovering mint errors. Collectors always hunt for unusual varieties, as errors can multiply a coin's value. Some coins were struck with off-center errors, where the design is shifted noticeably away from the center. These are popular finds and highly collectible. The 1937 wheat penny reflects a fascinating era in American history. It was struck during the latter years of the Great Depression, a time when every cent carried weight for families struggling to survive. For many, these pennies were more than coins, they were lifelines, used to purchase bread, milk, or basic necessities. Minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The 1937 penny offers collectors a wide range of mint-marked varieties. Each mint tells a slightly different story of production, quality, and demand during that year, making the coin's legacy even richer. The obverse of the coin, featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile, symbolized national unity during tough economic times. By 1937, Lincoln's image had already become a powerful emblem of perseverance. justice, and the hope for recovery. The reverse design, known as the wheat ears, represented American agriculture and prosperity. The simple wheat stalks were not just decorative, they were symbolic of the nation's backbone, the farmers and workers who fueled the economy. One of the most exciting aspects for collectors is the existence of mint errors from 1937. Some coins were struck with double dies or off-center impressions, making them extremely valuable today. Such mistakes were rare but are now highly sought-after treasures. The Philadelphia Mint produced the largest number of 1937 pennies, which makes them the most common. However, well-preserved Philadelphia coins in high grades can still fetch impressive prices in auctions. Denver's 1937 D pennies often appear sharper in strike compared to Philadelphia issues. Collectors often prize the D mint versions for their strong details and durability, especially when found in uncirculated condition. San Francisco's 1937 S penny, though produced in smaller numbers than Philadelphia, is not considered rare. Still, pristine specimens are beloved by collectors and hold significant historical and sentimental value. Over the decades, the 1937 penny became a nostalgic keepsake for many Americans. People born that year, or those who grew up in the 1930s, often held onto the coin as a symbol of resilience during hard times. Today, the 1937 Liberty Wheat penny is a popular choice for beginners and advanced numismatists alike. It is both accessible and historically significant, bridging the gap between common circulation coins and valuable collectibles. The coin also reflects technological advances in minting. By 1937, the U.S. Mint had mastered large-scale penny production, yet human errors still slipped through, creating valuable rarities that thrill modern-day treasure hunters. Collectors often compare the 1937 penny to earlier Lincoln cents of the 1910s and 1920s. While earlier issues may be scarcer, the 1937 penny carries a charm of its own because it was minted just before World War II reshaped America. Interestingly,